Part 20 begins in the lingering tension that exists long after the gavel falls, the kind of tension that lives in public memory, institutional culture, and civic discourse. The confrontation between Jasmine Crockett and Pam Bondi has evolved from a live exchange into a reference point for how accountability, acknowledgement, and procedural integrity interact under the weight of moral scrutiny. The shadow of Jeffrey Epstein adds gravity, symbolizing the systemic failures and unacknowledged harms that institutions must confront. Crockett's insistence on explicitly recognizing survivors demanded that the human cost of past failures be acknowledged publicly, while Bondi's composed defense emphasized that authority, context, and legal frameworks are essential for credible oversight. The tension between these imperatives, the immediacy of moral clarity versus the steadiness of institutional rigor, defines the power and lasting relevance of the hearing. Looking deeper, Crockett's method highlights that moral accountability cannot be postponed. Her insistence brought attention to the presence of survivors in a way that procedural statements alone could not, forcing recognition into the public record and into the ethical consciousness of the room. Bondi's response, structured and historically contextualized, illustrates that legitimacy requires explanation, clarity, and adherence to law, even when faced with morally charged questioning. Observers simultaneously assess both dimensions, interpreting whether acknowledgement feels authentic and whether procedural defense feels sufficient. The dual assessment underscores that accountability is inherently multidimensional, an intersection of moral, legal, and emotional responsibility. The symbolic resonance of Epstein's legacy magnifies every aspect of the exchange. While the hearing superficially addressed questions about past prosecutorial decisions, it also embodied the consequences of institutional oversight failures, societal inequities, and the enduring need for public trust. Crockett's insistence centered human experience in the spotlight, demanding that acknowledgement be visible, immediate, and morally accountable. Bondi's measured framing ensured that historical context, legal precedent, and institutional boundaries were not ignored. Together they modeled a crucial dynamic. Oversight must address both human impact and structural integrity to maintain legitimacy in the eyes of the public. Accountability is also shown to be iterative, not instantaneous. A single moment in a hearing rarely changes policy or culture outright, but it establishes norms, informs expectations, and gradually shapes behavior. Crockett's insistence may normalize explicit acknowledgement of survivors in future proceedings, while Bondi's structured defense may guide how historical decisions are publicly explained without undermining credibility. Over time, these moments ripple through institutions, embedding standards that integrate empathy with procedural clarity. The cumulative effect strengthens institutions and reinforces public trust, even in morally complex and emotionally charged contexts. The tension between confrontation and composure illustrates a key democratic principle. Crockett's intensity brings moral clarity, urgency, and ethical framing. Bondi's composure preserves legitimacy, structure, and procedural fidelity. Observers learn that accountability is multidimensional, requiring the simultaneous application of moral responsiveness and institutional rigor. The exchange becomes a template for how officials and citizens should approach ethically complex, legally nuanced issues, showing that neither empathy nor procedure can be abandoned without consequence. Responsibility also lies with the public. Civic engagement, reflection, and critical discourse transform singular moments into enduring influence. The Crockett-Bondi exchange, under the shadow of Epstein, establishes benchmarks for recognizing survivors, defending authority, and communicating with transparency and moral awareness. Its lasting impact depends on public insistence that acknowledgement and procedural rigor remain inseparable, that empathy strengthens authority rather than undermines it, and that accountability is maintained to its highest ethical and practical standard. The essential insight is that justice is holistic. It integrates acknowledgement, empathy, and structured authority. The conversation initiated in that hearing continues to influence public expectation, institutional behavior, and societal norms. It demonstrates that transparency, human recognition, and procedural rigor are mutually reinforcing pillars, not competing alternatives. The Crockett-Bondi exchange exemplifies how democracy functions under scrutiny, ensuring that ethical clarity and institutional integrity advance together, leaving a lasting imprint that extends far beyond the immediate controversy.